Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another video interview from the Sejong Cultural Society. My name is Susanna Song. Today's topic is literally and figuratively out of this world. Awesome. A collection of poems will soon be encapsulated in a book and heading to the moon, including 10 Sijo. And you will find out more about this project in just a moment. First, in this room, let me welcome you to a familiar face, Lucy Park. She's the founder of the Sejong Cultural Society. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for
and
your
also
time.
in this room with us is Joyce Brinkman. She's the lead editor of the Polaris Trilogy. That's the book I was holding up earlier. It's an anthology of poems by poets around the world. Welcome, Joyce.
Thank you so much.
And I love your background there, Sue.
Well, that's on the back of the book.
Yeah, you're taking us right to the moon.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, what a spectacular project to oversee. Tell us more about the book, the Polaris Trilogy, and how this is part of a larger, more expansive project called the Lunar Codex.
Yes, the Lunar Codex is something that is just a fantastic thing that is happening on the moon, or going to happen on the moon. Building it's actually several different launches of art and culture to the moon, thanks to Samuel Peralta and his generosity and his vision to send all of these different things, gather all these different things and send them to the moon. I'm so excited about it because I think it's wonderful that where science and technology goes, that art and culture is going to go too, because art and culture is such an important part of human existence. So I'm thrilled about the whole project. Actually, I'm involved in two of the flights with something going to the moon. The Nova flight, I have some collaborative work that's going up on the Nova flight, and then World Anthology is going up on the last of the four flights. And you can't see where that one's going. It's going to the South Pole on the moon behind me, but you can't see that because I'm in the way. I'm sorry.
Well, what a celestial endeavor there, Joyce. And these forms of artwork, books, paintings, sculptures, they'll all be placed into a time capsule that will then go up into space.
It's a time capsule in a way. I don't want people to think it's going to be buried. Okay. Sometimes I think we think of time capsules being buried. I kind of think of the Lunar Codex more as a library / museum on the moon, because Samuel tells me that it would be possible to, if you're an astronaut who might be spending 6 months or a year there on your way to Mars, or, helping to explore space some other way, you would be able to go there and see the artwork, read the poetry, watch the film. I mean, it's an incredible feat. I think of it as microfiche. I think it's called nickel nanofiche, this little invention that is where it's going to be recorded and where it then can be retrieved. All of this artwork, all of this part of this of the Lunar Codex is going to be stay with the lunar lander.
Yeah.
Whenever something goes up in space, the NASA actually contracts all kinds of different companies to do different parts. So somebody does the rocket, somebody does the lander, somebody does the rover that roves around and does the experiments. My understanding is that it's the lander is going to stay there. The rover will go wherever until it ceases to be able to operate. And all of this stuff is going to basically stay on the lander. So it is the structure, if you will. It is the museum. It is the library of the moon. It's going to be holding all of this art and culture as it continues to sit there. And this technology that they're putting it on is protected from the radiation of the moon and should last for millions and millions of years.
Well, that's fascinating. Yeah. And included in this anthology, as I mentioned earlier, that's headed to the moon to be in the library on the lander, are 10 Sijo, right? And so that's where the Sejong Cultural Society comes in. One of the 10 Sijo has been written by Lucy Park. So Lucy, I want to bring you into the conversation. How exciting is it to have one of your Sijo published to be read for centuries to come on the moon?
Joyce contacted me and explained about this project. And she wanted to put Sijo in the anthology, and I was so excited. And I contacted Sijo Poets Association in Korea, and they also became very interested and excited. So I encouraged them to send the Sijo, and I translated their Sijo into English. In that collection, one of my Shizo was included. So I'm so excited and grateful to Joyce.
Can you please read your Sijo both in Korean and then translate that into English?
Yeah, the Korean version is 달. 어머니 떠나신 날 쳐다본 창백한 초승달. 아버지 가신 날에 본 얼룩진 반달. 오늘 밤 온화한 미소로 저 달은 누굴 위로하나. Moon. I saw the pale crescent moon when I learned of mom's passing. Half moon smudged by the night cloud gazed at me when dad departed. Dear moon, with your caressing smile, who are you comforting tonight?
Thank you for sharing that. Is that based on real life events, or is that something that you...
Yes, it was a real life event. I always wanted to write it down. And when Joyce said, write about something about moon, star, and or sun, then I said, okay, that is something I want to write. So Joyce, tell her about the topics you assign. So that was our topic.
Well, basically, my mission was to get, hopefully, when we started out, I was hoping to get a poem from every country on earth. And as I say in my thoughts in the beginning, that probably would have been a lifetime project. But we were fortunate enough to get poems from every continent. And I very much wanted to also use the native languages, as many native languages as possible. Because let's face it, the moon doesn't just belong to English speakers. There are lots of different people, countries that are involved in the study and science of space. And there are going to be astronauts from lots of places on Earth, I think, who will be going to the moon at some point. And so I thought it was important that we had a representation of, as many cultures and as many languages as we could possibly have. I had not experienced Sijo in my research because this was a big project of research and finding out about what was out there. And in finding the society and getting in touch with Lucy, she was such a salesman for this form. The thing I liked about it is that it's an ancient form too. I'm not as familiar with Korean poetry. I like Japanese and have worked and collaborated with Japanese poets before. I'm very interested in classical Chinese poetry. And it is kind of interesting to me too, how the moon plays in all of these cultures, and a lot of things about poetry and similarities about poetry. And Lucy's explanation of where Sijo came from in Korean history and its part in Korean culture, I do think it's something that we want to get to know better. Not just because I wanted it in this book, but I think Lucy's going to work with me and we're going to try to get more people aware of it. There's so many wonderful different cultures in our world, and it's a shame not to amplify them as often and as different ones as often as much as we can. So one of the nice things about this is too, Lucy said that it kind of started out as sort of a love poetry too, which is a kind of a nice way that it can be used. I think we almost everybody at some point needs a little love poetry in their life, right? So it's an interesting form. I particularly do like short forms. It's not as short as haiku, but it's also a short form. And there's a certain discipline to short forms that I think is valuable in poetry. And so I'm really grateful to Lucy and the work that she did in helping me on this, and the work that I think we're going to be able to do together to continue also. And if I may, I want to try to show you, because I think this book is as much a work of art as it is a work of literature. If you can see kind of what the page is here. Right here on this page is a poet by a young Chinese poet from Hong Kong. And then, over here is one written in English by a former poet laureate of Delaware who is of Filipino ancestry. And then there's Lucy's Sijo down there. So once again, we've got 3 different languages here, more than 3 different cultures, actually, in a way represented, because Joanne has the Philippine background, but she's an American citizen and grew up in America. So this world connection that comes through, and the different languages. Now, I can also show you some of the other things in the book we have some poems that are shape poems, which I think is also very interesting in different languages. We have several that are in Spanish. This one happens to be in English. And then next to that, we have a poem down at the bottom. We have a Sijo that is written in English.
Sure.
This one is from Nancy Jorgensen. So we have Sijos that are written in Korean, and we also have Sijos that are written in English. So that's another really nice thing about it, that we have that variety with that form.
That was a big feat, I'm sure, that you had to undertake to get all of that in there. And it is a beautiful work of art.
Joyce asked the poets to write on certain topics based on where they live. For poets in Asia and North America, had the topic of sun, moon, and stars. And poets in Europe and Africa were supposed to write a poem about rock, water, and air. And the poets in South America and Australia wrote poems on ice, wind, and fire.
Lucy, it's also, we had the poems from Antarctica, from the scientists who go down there, have been going down there and living and studying for a period of time. Nobody's actually a citizen of Antarctica, but they wrote poems. They also wrote poems. So they were part of that.
Yes, so she asked new poems just written for this project, but not old poem. And also I was very impressed that they didn't just want to include all these famous poets, but everybody who writes poem in many different cultures. It's the inclusion of many poets who actively write poems in many different ethnicity and nationality. That is very impressive.
How many poems are in here?
I think there are about 150, to tell you the truth. I've been living with this for so long. I'm not 100% sure, but I think there might be about 150 in here. And one of the things that Lucy's talking about is the variety, not only in language and culture, but also in the degree of expertise as far as the poets are concerned. Because we have Ted Kooser in here, which is a former U.S. poet laureate and one of just the most glorious poets ever to write a poem. And we have a young man from DePaul who is just really kind of starting on his poetry journey. So it's that combination of also that I think is great in capturing, in a moment of time, capturing across the world what people are thinking about and saying about in poetic form.
Yeah, the level of expertise. You had professional writers all the way down to just amateur folks who love to write and were able to express their ideas in this book that will be memorialized in the capsule to be at the moon. So that's fantastic. I would have a hard time, Joyce, just trying to select and whittle it down to 100, 150, because I'm sure you probably got so many submissions and so many options to add to this book. Well, as we wrap up this interview, Joyce, I just have one question, as we've got many Sejong Cultural Society followers on YouTube who frequent our website. How did you stumble across the Sejong Cultural Society?
Well, I found it on on the web. That's it. It's a good thing you had it out there, because that's how I found it. And somehow, and I don't exactly remember how I landed on Lucy, but I saw it in several different ways on several different websites. Somebody would friend somebody else and so forth. That was it. I mean, this was really a big search on from my standpoint, because there is no one place to go and reach everybody in the world when you're trying to look for poetry. So there was a lot of searching to it, and I found gold when I found Lucy, for sure. I'm very pleased and excited about that.
Well, thank you so much, and you nailed it on the head when you said you found gold when you found Lucy. we all share that sentiment. Well, thank you so much to both of you for sharing this amazing story with us. I'm sure we will all hear much more about NASA's plans to transport, the technology and the people and things highlighting art and culture to the moon in the years to come. So thank you very much. And if people want to learn more about this project, I'm sure we will have more information on the Sejong Cultural Society once the details are solidified on when all of this heads up to the moon next year. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.